An incident was reported. The report has been written. Everything was documented. Clearance has been given. Work should be resumed. In the last module, we discussed Safety Standard Operating Procedures, or SOPs, and you saw the passive voice in use. The passive voice is used when the action or the object is more important than the subject. In fact, I just used the passive voice in that last sentence. Let's look at the sentence more closely, and we'll also look at it using the opposite of the passive voice, the active voice. Passive voice. The passive voice is used when the action or the object is more important than the subject. Active voice. You use the passive voice when the action or the object is more important than the subject. Why did I use the passive voice in the sentence? It's because I'm emphasizing the words the passive voice, which in the sentence is the object of the verb. It doesn't matter as much who is using the passive voice or who is doing the action. What is important is that the passive voice is being used. There, I just used the passive voice again. Did you notice? What did I just say? The passive voice is being used. Let's look at how we form the passive voice. The formula for the passive voice is the be verb plus the past participle of the verb. You can use the be verb in any verb tense, but the main verb is always the past participle. When you are finished with the video, you'll be able to see a chart with the passive voice being used in all of the verb tenses. But for now, let's look at a few examples of the passive voice. This example was adapted from the Flight Ground Safety Operations Standard Operating Procedure Manual, so the writing style should be familiar for you from the last module. Let's look at that example. Aircraft mishap reporting procedures will be reported in accordance with INL/A program directives. The first thing we need to ask is, why are we using the passive voice here? In this sentence, it doesn't matter who reports the mishap. The important information is that someone reports the mishap. Now, let's look at the verb. What is it? The verb is will be reported. What is our verb tense? It's the simple future. How can you tell? The verb will be is in the simple future. Now, you can change the verb tense and say, for example, aircraft mishap reporting procedures are usually reported in accordance with INL/A program directives. Now the verb is in the simple present, but you can see the main verb reported hasn't changed. Let's look at one more example. This example comes from an airworthiness directive, which is another place you'll likely find the passive voice, and we'll be looking at those later on. This unsafe condition led to the determination that additional blades could be affected and should be added to the applicability. You can see in this example that you can also use modals with the passive voice. In this case, we have two verbs, could be affected and should be added. Just like with other modals, we use the base form of the verb be, and we add the past participle to the main verb. You can see that we often use the passive voice. Please continue reading to learn more about how you can form the passive voice in a sentence.